This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Public Meeting Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on January 8, 2025, and was posted on Borough Hall website at www.hbborough.com and on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue in Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my right and left of Council Chambers. Aaron, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Foster,
Yes?
Councilmember George.
Here.
Councilmember Hale,
Here.
Councilmember Hirsch,
Here.
Council President Kim Cho Han.
Here.
Councilmember Pistonik,
Here.
Councilmember Vargas,
Here.
Borough Attorney Renan,
Here.
and Borough Administrator Herrera.
Here.
Okay. Tonight on our discussion item, we're going to start off with 308 Raritan Avenue and redevelopment. Terry?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I have been working with the owner of 308 Raritan Avenue, along with our planner, Chris. The purchaser, I guess she purchased the building probably a year ago, a little maybe, give or take, and I know we've discussed it at various iterations, but they've gotten the project to a point where we are recommending as a staff that we consider a conditional developer designation, which would allow us to establish an escrow account and agreement so that we can further vet this concept out, inclusive of whether or not a financial agreement makes sense based on the project. Just to kind of summarize, just for everybody, it's 308 Raritan, which is the vacant property in between El Sol and the Gold Mine Barber Shop, just to kind of orient you. It's the project that's being proposed is mixed use, meaning there's retail on the ground level and apartments upstairs, about 28,000 square feet, inclusive of the driveway access that they have proposed. 18 residential units and with 3 of them being affordable in accordance with our ordinance. The commercial space is approximately, as currently kind of sketched out, 1,200 square feet of commercial on the ground level. I should mention the owner, at least as the last time I talked with her, is a pharmacist, and her proposal is to move her business into the building, at least as of the last time we spoke about it. And I know that's an important issue in our current climate. There is a kind of a creative parking solution in that which has been proposed is a kind of a self-parking mechanism. That's another thing we want to do a little more due diligence on to see how that would work. And probably the most ambitious element of the project that she's proposed is that it would be a 3D printed building, which would be, as far as we know, the first of its kind in terms of commercial development in New Jersey of this nature, which is highly ambitious, as well as utilizing a lot of kind of green design, kind of advanced green design technology is how I would put it. And so basically this, what I'm asking council to consider, hopefully at their next meeting your next meeting on the 24th, is a resolution that would basically authorize an agreement that would designate the owner of 308 Raritan, which is unfortunately titled United Estate Family Holding LLC, very not easy to understand what that is. The conditional developer designation, it has that same kind of time frame like we had with 6 months kind of to do our due diligence, so that both parties act kind of in good faith to explore whether or not the project's viable, answer questions about the project's expense pro formas, things like that, as well as any other questions we might have, for her professionals. But I will say the owner has put in a lot of energy into the project so far. They did post, I mentioned an escrow agreement, but we have been charging escrows for our planner's time, but we're going to need more. And really, we should formalize that agreement now. We don't want to, she needs to have some assurance that we're giving it fair consideration at this point. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I'm, happy to, and I know we've discussed this in various formats prior, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to field them.
Just to say, the Economic Development Committee talked about this. Think that we think it's a good idea to sort of move the ball forward a little bit, whereas, there's still, it's a fun, interesting, new, different kind of project. But that means that there is some really high upside, but there's also, we got to make sure we're doing things the right way. And so I think this is a process of conditional development, is that we sort of both get to vet this out for a little bit more before anything else goes forward. So I think that was our thought. Is that a fair summary of what we talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we were excited by the green design elements. Curious about the 3D printing construction. I guess we would want all the assurance that it will be sound in construction, and I don't know if the construction code is fully caught up to it.
That is a
why
big
not?
question that we will have she has brought on somebody who's got some experience with 3D printing, and some of that risk is on her, to make sure it passes muster with our code officials and the state. We're going to need, we've voiced that concern many times. We don't have that. I mean, nobody has that experience, frankly. I mean, there are some examples of 3D printed homes, but they're kind of like off-site printed, and then but I'm sure we're going to have a wealth of questions around that, the parking system and otherwise, but this at least gives us kind of a little more structured format to have that conversation.
And just to Matt's point, I think we're just very excited about the prospect of that, kind of defunct property being revitalized and put to, it sounds like a very promising use.
And what I should say is, based on our last time we looked at the plans, they generally conform to the 2005 redevelopment plan parameters, with some of these kind of new design techniques included. So we've done enough vetting of the project to know it kind of passes that first cut, but now we got to kind of slice in. But she's eager. It would be nice to see that project move forward in some fashion, just because that property has been in bad condition for such a long time. And so yeah.
Matt?
Where did we leave this when we talked about this last? Because I think that we had some concern. I had some concerns about a redevelopment area and a pilot. I mean, so what can you remind us what the purpose of designating this as a?
So this will basically does not commit us to the project or any financial agreement, but what this will allow, and what we had discussed previously, was we needed them to post the escrows so that we could have our professionals evaluate the numbers and evaluate if a financial agreement made sense or a pilot made sense, as well as the other aspects of the project. This gives them a little more protection that we're doing this in good faith to try to see if we can figure it out. But it's very clear in the agreement and in the reso that this doesn't mean your project is approved. That is 100% not what this is. But this basically carves out the space that, you're going to post these escrows, you're going to keep them replenished, and then until we get to a point where it's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and we'll move forward.
But they're going to be thinking that a pilot is.
That's the request. The request was that they would like, they're arguing it would be a modest amount, not a huge one, to make the project work, and they're willing to throw in some additional benefits to the municipality, which I'm not prepared to present right now. But that's the conversation that having this designation and these funds will allow us to have and bring back to the council.
Did they hear our feedback about the kind of ambitious nature of the
Yes,
project?
100%.
And that ambition is what necessitates a pilot potentially? I
Yes.
mean, other than, instead of a normal building, for example? Yeah.
It's really cool though.
I'm sure it's really cool.
I've been watching them in Switzerland,
Yeah,
and there's
I
a
saw the
thing in
same one.
Nevada. Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
like, they're really.
No, it's
Okay,
been relayed
I
prior
guess.
to
They're
councils
really cool.
from myself and
They've done
staff.
really well.
But I feel that they've done enough due diligence and put enough specifics together that we can make a reasonable evaluation. And just to remind everybody, in a redevelopment agreement, we can include timelines and things. So if the project can't get off the ground, there can be contingencies for that as well, so that this property doesn't fall in under its own weight, and ambition. So there are ways we can structure that should we decide to move forward.
Maybe they can build one more affordable unit.
And
Anything
it's,
can be discussed.
as Terry said, they have actually, when they first brought it to us, we were a little nervous, and they've done some serious work to get it to this stage, right? Like I think they heard us. I think they heard some of the things that we said to them, and have made some real effort to sort of get us to this point. So they put in some work. So I think it's.
Like, what do they do? I'm just
Well,
wondering.
they just came back with some more concrete foot on the or bone or meat on the bones, I guess, is of the plans. It was just sort of at the beginning, my memory of it is that it was, let's have a 3D building, and we're gonna, and I'm gonna build it because I saw it on YouTube, and I think they've done a lot more than that. So
I think it was just ideas,
Yeah.
right? And the
So.
professionals and that.
Yeah, the good thing on the redevelopment plan from our side is we can ask them for these details, to put more flesh on the bones of the proposal. We can actually ask them, and they pay for us to look at it.
yeah.
Is there any issue with if the developer is also the retail operator? Is there any issue there with the pilot or any?
I don't think so.
Is
No.
there one of
I
the
don't know why
same?
that would be a conflict.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, because I would argue it's an owner occupied building, that makes the financials work better, meaning we're less reliant on a pilot or, bigger, because they're gonna benefit from their own building. So that's, it's just kind of like if you own a two-family and you
ownership,
live in
yeah.
one of the units,
You're gonna
you're
take better care.
benefiting from it. So I think that probably helps the financials of the project, because that's money she would have otherwise been paying rent to somebody else. She can kind of put into her own project. There's a lot of, it is ambitious, but it's encouraging. And I know we've been talking about wanting to see smaller projects, more infill type stuff happen, not just our larger Tract A, Tract C
Mhm.
kind of projects. So this kind of fits that bill in my.
And I
opinion.
like it because it's woman and minority owned. So those are really good components that she's bringing to the table.
What would be the difference between, like, say, for example, the former Safe Drugs, which has the building issues? What would be the difference between other smaller projects coming in and saying, hey, I want to pilot too?
I mean, right now, the main difference is this is in a redevelopment area. It's in the 2005
Redevelopment
designated
plan.
area. So, it is to some extent on the table for properties that are conforming to the 2005 or our more recent 2019, 2020, whatever we updated it, 2024, Tract A to D. So it's not even on the table in areas where we've relied on, for example, on the most recent one, 810 North Second was a small redevelopment plan, but it was using the rehab
Right.
statute to adopt the plan, which doesn't include long-term financial agreements as a threat. So that's one criteria. And certainly if you guys are gonna, consider that here, we can have that conversation about, well, what kind of parameters are we comfortable with? Community benefits, environmental benefits, things like that. Obviously the affordable housing, we're always looking to encourage that as well. But the main difference between them and any other property is the 2005 redevelopment, at least puts it on the table.
Mhm.
I don't know if I have a good handle over this proposal. But I'd be willing to support it right now, but I don't really understand the financials or the.
Neither do we.
Full-
That's
full
why,
scope of the
that's why we
project.
we don't have the financial information. That's what this will be kind of jumping us into. And what I can share with everybody is the draft agreement and resolution that the attorneys have put together. So you get a better handle on what the council at the next meeting is going to be,
That would be
asked to
good.
do, which is really just the designation and the escrow agreement. And it's very clearly not, but it acknowledges this, as of right now, the project looks like something like I just read off right out of the agreement, the parameters, looks like that. And that's what we're basically saying. Okay, it seemed like there was at least a general interest enough, and we were very clear, it's not a slam dunk. Moving, but that, we are basically indicating that we are willing to give this some thought, and we haven't closed the door to it.
Any further discussions? Questions? Okay, so Terry, please do send
I'll
information
forward this
around,
around, sure thing.
and so everybody can have it. So, okay, so we're
So
gonna move
this is
on.
gonna be on.
I would like to request because,
Okay.
you know, I
the
believe they're
next
ready.
council meeting. Next
And,
Tuesday.
you know, at the 24th, if
No,
not.
that's why I was asked if
Yeah.
there's any other
It's,
additional
the
questions.
reso and the agreements are ready.
Yeah, and I think this is one that we need to,
Okay, so,
because of the ordinance issues, we might have to adopt. I think we need to keep a closer eye on this one as it goes through the early stages, rather than just have it come back in 6 months. Because I think we're gonna have to change some ordinances here.
sure. All right, so, you have more questions?
I just wondering, when will we be able to see the agreement?
I can forward it to you when I get back to my desk.
Okay, we'll all get a copy of the agreement.
Well, I can't vote, I mean, if I need to see it first.
We're not
right?
voting tonight.
I know,
We're
but I
not-
mean, we're voting to allow for this to be on the agenda, right?
We're not voting. I
We're
mean,
not
Or-
voting,
or
we're saying we're gonna add it to
agreeing.
the agenda.
I mean, my request is us to consider it on the 24th.
Yes.
If you would, you know, and that's what I would ask the mayor to put it on the agenda, but, you know, there's nothing saying it has to be.
Okay, show of hands, who would like to see it on the agenda? Okay. I'm gonna move forward with putting it on your agenda. Please send that document
Please.
out so everybody can have a
The
look
minutes
at
show
it.
was not unanimous.
And yes, please note, it was not unanimous for it to be on the agenda, get an extension. Okay, number 2, HEPA.
That's Aaron.
I'm in fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I have to follow that, which is. Okay, so in 2001, the borough entered into a mortgage agreement with the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency for a series of low-income properties, about 75 units. That mortgage was a 25-year mortgage. It was $200,000. And the terms of that mortgage were, it was at a 4.5% interest that compounded. But each year, the operation had to look at its revenue, see what it was able to take in from the state. This is very subsidized housing. And if they were able to make payments on the interest, they would. But if not, then that interest just continued to accrue. At the end of the 25 years, which is the end of this month, all of the principal and the accrued interest comes due. They approached us because their current deed restrictions and the pilot agreement that goes with those deed restrictions extends for another 5 years. So it goes out until 2031. So what we're putting forward is a resolution to amend the mortgage agreement to allow them to have the mortgage expire at the same time that the deed restriction and the pilot would. Now, in doing that, we are working on extending out that deed restriction for another 30 years. And I'm assuming the pilot would go with it. So that's effectively, we're going to do this, and in exchange, they are going to extend the deed restriction out and do whatever they need to do in order to make sure that those properties stay deed restricted. We'll take you through this section of I think we're at stage 4 right now, and we'll take you for another 30 years thereafter. The nice part with this too is that in doing so, you'll continue to earn interest. So right now, we estimate that the interest accrued was about $216,000 and then a $200,000 principal. So that $200,000 principal, that 216 will be memorialized in this, and then you'll continue to earn interest in an accrued fashion. That will all come due now November of 2030.
Questions? I know Matt doesn't have one, because this was your project for a while there, wasn't it?
They have, I mean, kind of oversight. but-
When you were on the Housing
Housing.
Authority, I remember you bringing this to me, we were discussing it.
No, this is
sometime.
great. Thank you, Matt, for.
Yeah. All right, any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly. So I guess to be clear, in terms of the deed restrictions that would be extending for 30 years, is the affordability.
Yeah, so they're actually getting money toward the rental properties through the state. So this isn't just like I mean, this is like a truly subsidized housing, which is a wonderful thing to have in the town, and it has really helped a lot of folks. It's going to extend that deed restriction on those properties past 2031, and what we're working on is another 30 years thereafter. So that's at least the plan. Otherwise, you know, and that's the only reason why we're looking to do the mortgage extensions, to just try to make everything line up together.
Which units are we talking?
Yeah, where at, for the record. Where is the?
So this is, so
Is it across from
It's
you?
right over here.
It's,
It's
you know,
right
the
over here.
development across from the Kronman
Yes.
building, that's run by
Yeah.
Conifer.
Mhm.
That's the building that's called a HEPA.
I called it book numbers, page numbers, blocks, lots. And I never once referred to the address.
Yeah, that's just for the record.
It's like, oh, block 57. Yeah, so yes, that's a better.
Some people often think it's public housing, it's the building right across the street.
Right.
Yeah, So if your back is to the front of the Kronman building, you're staring at pretty much the building we're talking about, maybe a little too.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm done.
no,
I just
you're
wanted,
not
because I
good.
hadn't heard
Oh, okay.
anything about this before, so I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah,
understood.
we started the conversation early. So we're starting with the mortgage now. We're well in advance of the deed restriction kind of expiring, but because they needed to do that, we're starting the conversation that we wouldn't have had probably for another 4 years. We just kind of started now.
One thing, we did discuss it at finance at least once, because I knew this was coming and it was kind of convoluted sounding and I needed Aaron's help to explain it. But it actually got a little simpler because we're basically doing step one and we're extending 5 years. It doesn't, no skin off our nose to extend the mortgage additional
Yeah.
5 years. If we can't make it work, or if they can't make it work, because they've explained to us, they want to do the additional 30 years, but they've got to layer in all their subsidies. It's been our pilot alone. Should we agree to extend it another 30 years, may not be sufficient to run that operation as subsidized as it is. So they'll have to explain to us all those particulars, and this gives them, they basically got a few years to figure it out, and
Yep.
we'll kind of be there along the way trying to figure it out. So, because I don't think we donated that land and did this so that we would one day revert to market rate, in 2031. I will say, one thing that gave me some comfort to know was, if for some reason we can't make the deal work and the project does revert, there is a 3-year,
Yeah.
if you could explain that.
So in the current agreement, there's a 3-year, there's a deed restriction. If the deed restriction expires, and they have to go through the state for these, so there's it's a little bit more complicated on their end. It has that for 3 years, they can't remove any of those residents. So if the residents leave over the course of 3 years, that's fine, then those apartments will cycle, but we'll at least have a little bit of a buffer. If they decide to no longer go with the deed restriction, that we'll be able to figure some things out for these folks. But like I said, when I talked to them, they have absolutely, at least what they have relayed to me was that they're not even considering, they just want to continue the project as is. They want to extend it out. They like where it's at. Ironically, and I think really their point was, we did a 30-year pilot, a 30-year deed restriction, and a 25-year mortgage. And they were like, why didn't we just do it for
doesn't
30 years?
make
And it
sense.
should have been 30. It should
And
have been-
everything just kind of comes together.
So it
you
just,
know. Mhm.
yeah, so pretty straightforward. I would also, just so you all are aware, right now, the way it is, we haven't actually received any money in terms of the mortgage or the interest payment yet. And just to kind of reiterate that, so it's not like we are losing revenue or anything like that. It's right now, the way that their agreement was done is it's only if they're turning a certain amount of profit do they make these payments, or at the expiration of the mortgage. So we're not changing any dynamic of where we are right now. We're just giving them a little bit more time at more interest before they finally have to pay us off. So it'll be one massive.
That one, we are under some pressure to get done because, like you mentioned, their term expires at the end of the month. So, and they've been very good about working with us. I wouldn't want to, so I'm hoping you guys are comfortable at this point to
Yeah.
agree to that. Because they're gonna have to hustle if we don't make it work.
So I, like a few questions came, so is it a fixed rate that they have or, okay.
Yeah, so it's a 4.5 interest, right? But everything's compounding. So, and because they're not making any of the payments, they have the
Principal
compounded
payment,
interest plus the
yeah.
principal that they know. So that's why we're estimating about $216,000 in interest payments, and $200,000 in principal is what's currently owed. And then that will go up by another, 60 months of interest. It's a pretty straightforward mortgage, which is kind of nice. So it's because we're not banks, so we go through. It's a little bit easier to redo.
Just one follow-up question to that. So I guess sort of what we're giving up in exchange for the extension of the affordability controls is the or deed restrictions, is that we would be getting the payment for the mortgage in the near future, but we're delaying that by 5 years.
We are, but we're lining it up with the current deed restriction.
Right, which
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, and look, everyone can say this is what we want, but sometimes the economics might change it. So part of, I think their concern is they want to extend out so it all kind of lines up, so their finances are on the same page. It allows them to now go through and try to extend the deed restriction. In the reverse is we could, and the council certainly has this right, is to say, well, we don't want to extend the mortgage anymore, to which case the mortgage is going to come due pretty much the next couple of weeks. But they may turn around and say, well, then we're not going to look to extend out the deed restriction, and then we'll have to start that process. So my advice or my recommendation is I think the extension makes sense. It's at the end of the day, we're going to attract the interest, we're going to attract the balloon payment. It's going to be a little bit more money to the town, and it's going to secure you in all likelihood a good extension on affordable housing.
It serves an important need.
Yes.
It would be a little hard to imagine if that just all of a sudden was a.
Went
market
away,
rate
yeah.
building. I mean, it's hard to imagine. Especially, we're in such good position with all of our numbers and, and we would also, that's like a 5th round accomplishment. Because if we get that done during the 4th round, and then that's absolutely, we run right into round 5, whatever that looks like, in a very good position.
That's what I was gonna say too, is that number one, it doesn't look like a project that would do a lot in the open market. Number two, it is a major cherry for 5th round, because it's gonna come due when we have to start
It's
putting
gonna
our
be like blink.
the mortgage is gonna be due when the restrictions come off, so we maybe actually be able to take credit for something that's just gonna happen anyway. And the third thing is, it's really probably one of the most affordable of anything that we call affordable in town. So I think we need to do it.
Yeah, the fact that this is subsidized through the state as well is a huge benefit
Yes,
to the folks. who live there.
absolutely.
So, okay, sounds
Right.
good. Good. Wonderful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Ask him now, because Aaron's not gonna be at the next meeting, so.
Yeah. It's a wrap.
Wait for.
On the log
We're
on.
asking in advance of his
Yeah,
vacation, so that way.
Okay, number 3, Sustainable New Jersey.
Yeah, I just
Action.
wanted to take a few minutes. I wasn't intending on a full deep dive on these actions, but I did print out copies.
Matt and I are crazy about this because we love to go to that conference.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
But I am gonna do a take one and pass it down, if you don't mind. I'm gonna start with the complete and green streets policy. I did email this right before the meeting, so you have this digitally, not because I expected you to have read it. I did share it with public safety, but we didn't get into the weeds. That I basically wanted to walk you through what this was and what the proposal is, then give you time to read it, and we're gonna loop back around. I am hoping we can move forward on this as a policy, not an ordinance, because frankly, for us to get, I think it'd be better to try it out as a policy. They give you 2 options with Sustainable Jersey: policy as by reso or policy by ordinance. But I'll give you my rationale for why. But with Sustainable Jersey, all of these actions we have one last chance to submit our actions in July, I think by the end of July. So for us to, if we're gonna do this and we think it's pretty close and we can do it, I'm gonna really encourage us to try to get that on the July 1st agenda. So what I wanted to do, because it's a lot of material, and I thought if I could just give everybody my preamble, and then we can ask some high-level questions, but give you some time to look at it outside of the meeting, and then we can follow up as needed. But Peter Bilton from Safe Walking and Cycling took the Sustainable Jersey model resolution and policy. And the reason I suggested, and I should mention, I met with the chairs because a lot of this policy falls on administration, because it's really about how do we integrate bike, ped, safety into our routine decision makings about road projects, about redevelopment projects, all of that stuff. And it creates a really good template for how to do that. It also creates some accountability mechanisms that aren't no work for me, like a report you do every year. But we're not doing millions of miles of road projects a year. It's doable. But the reason I was suggesting we consider a resolution as opposed to the ordinance is there's enough moving parts with this that I wanted the opportunity. I thought doing it by reso would make it easier to make adaptations, learn from experience, and then jump in with the ordinance once we've had a little chance to look at it. Plus, in my grub for points, as I like to call it, I can't get an ordinance done by the deadline. I can do a resolution by the deadline.
There we go.
So what you have here is the model that Sustainable Jersey promulgates, and there's a color coding there where basically the items, there's no way we're doing any less than tier 2, in my opinion. Like we're already advanced in our thinking. We do have a bike ped plan. So a lot of this advances the bike ped plan and basically creates a place for it to have to be part of the conversation. That's how I'm looking at it. But basically the text in orange, but according to the Sustainable Jersey point structure, what Peter's tried to do is tell us things that are optional versus things that are mandatory by the different tiers. And my proposal, I think we could probably, and I know Phil was a proponent of going for green, the green tier here, which is not what they call it at Sustainable Jersey, but that's Peter's, annotation here. And so this is really something that, I think we can do because frankly, I'm probably at the crux of these projects and I feel it's doable. One thing I'll point out, and you'll have a chance to read this on your own, we will have to establish some sort of kind of committee that would meet. And my suggestion was going to be, because this is such a cross section, that it would include probably not like, and Phil, most importantly, SWAC, STAC, and maybe sustainable and environmental, and they would each send a representative. And we probably only have to meet once at the kind of early planning stages, or twice if we have a project pop up. And we would use the policy and the templates to kind of evaluate the project that's at hand. So one of our road projects, for example, one of our very routine, we're going to do between, Denison, between, 2nd to 5th or whatever it is. So there's a lot in here, so I'm not going to attempt to go through it all with you. But what I will say is it is very much a framework for how you're going to make decisions around bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure and how you're going to integrate it. And the nice thing, this is a very well vetted action, like the roadmap. It's like there's templates and there's even towns that have already adopted these and we can use their checklists. So one of the things we'll have to do is make up a checklist for each project, and that would have, as specified in the policy, certain questions we have to answer. Doesn't mean that every project, and this kind of goes with the Sustainable Land Use Pledge discussion that we'll have in a minute, has to do everything, but you have to go through the exercise of, well, if not, why? And because sometimes it's because you forgot, and that's not a good reason. And so we want to make sure we're picking up the low-hanging things that we should be doing. And then if we're not doing them, we're doing it intentionally, not because either we didn't think about it or we're being stingy. Maybe we just don't have the money, and that's the reason. That's okay. Or the maintenance on the green infrastructure, we just don't think we can manage it. It's too hard, but at least we've asked the question. So that's all I was gonna try to, you have it in your inbox, so you can read it if you like to read it that way. And then, but I will circulate an updated version very shortly with what I think is a reasonable, based on the fact, basically SWAC turned to me and was like, you kind of have to help us decide what's reasonable here, because so much of this is done by the borough administration and the CME team that is part of that when we're doing these projects.
Just a quick comment. When we were looking at it and going over it with SWAC, just want to point out that the green level, which would go for 25 points, I agree with the resolution approach. I originally would have preferred to do it by ordinance, but that was a couple of years ago when we were talking about one of the older versions of it, to do it so we could incorporate it into redevelopment along with some other improvements to that. However, if you look at this, just to let you know, the green section basically is only adding accounting for each project. It's for benchmarking by theoretical oversight group, which is really just, it's basically the committees we already have. So that the only green addition to take it up to the next level in the resolution is benchmarking but basically by SWAC, public safety, redevelopment, and public works. They all have an input in that for a particular project. Again, it's not everything. But
and there's going to be stuff that's hard to benchmark. We do know because we have the bike ped plan where we have gaps in the sidewalks. And so one of the measures that they want you to do is, have you filled in that
Those little
network,
gaps, yeah.
you know? And so we have a reasonable approximation, like, do I know to the like linear foot, like the amount of missing sidewalk? But certainly when we fill it in, we know what percentage are we filling in each year as we go, if we do a special program, what have you. So they're gonna be, and even SWAC acknowledged, the folks, you know, that there were some metrics that we're just gonna do our best, you know, to get that baseline. We're not gonna make it a full blown.
And that's all we
research
have to
project.
do.
And then it's like every year, we just have to go do a look back, you know, and how did we do? And then I'll have to report back to all of you, you know, and we'll just make it part of our routine. That's the hard part, is, you know, changing the routine. And I know that's something you've been talking about for a while, Matt. So I think this gets us a good way forward, but we still have to do it.
This is better than my back of the napkin overlay of where bike lanes
Yeah,
go, and I'm
yes.
trying to match it up with a
And it
road
puts the-
reconstruction
Put the
project.
bike ped plan in the place of like,
Exactly.
you know, we have to look at it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it looks
like-
like it looks like a
Because
blind
I
line.
just
The
glanced at some of the
diagram
green
was
and
like
I'm like,
that.
I can't tell you how many times I'm like, what should we do? I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And
We
this
have a
is,
bike ped plan. Why am I trying to do this from scratch? You know?
and just for some further context, I mean, this was, you know, this was on Trish Sanchez's radar when she chaired SWAC, so this has been a long time.
This has been a
coming.
while coming.
So it's great, yeah, this is great.
And I really, what Peter did, it seems very simple, but that makes my job going
Easy.
through it like, okay, these are the, like, if we have no discretion, that's like, okay, move on. But if,
You know,
you
that's
know.
why the meetings went on till 9
Yeah.
o'clock.
you know, and I think that's why we decided, let's just us sit together and then just try to bang something out,
Yes.
because I think we all were on the same page.
Mhm.
So that's this one, and I will circulate one that doesn't have all the highlights. That's kind of like my final proposal. And then we'll hopefully be in a good enough position to move it forward at the July 5th. I do need a little more time
Okay,
myself.
cool.
Another take one in here, I feel like a school teacher.
Yes.
Take one and pass it around. The Sustainable Land Use Pledge, I have an interesting history with this one. I'm sorry, Mayor, may I move on to the Sustainable Land?
Yes, yes.
The Sustainable Land Use Pledge is an action that I regret to inform you, I authored when I worked at New Jersey Future. And
Somebody
I
told me
say
that this morning in a meeting.
I regret to inform you only because I always found it to be not sufficiently strong enough, you know, when I was kind of in the advocacy role. That said, I was the reviewer for Sustainable Jersey for many years for this action. So what I've done in the version you have here and in your inbox, I've customized the pledge to a little degree to add some Highland Park flavor. I also did ask Erin to review it because I know the Economic Development Committee wanted, you know, a take on like, would this bite us in the butt in some unanticipated way in a future project? So I'll let Erin speak to that in a second. But essentially, the first four whereases in there are straight out of me circa 2000, whatever that was, when I helped write this. And some of these I
Somebody
was
did
like,
tell me that you helped write this morning
That-
in my meeting.
that's so, that's hilarious. So you have to, so then, but where I tried to add the flavor, and I think it's kind of important, it helped me think about the pledge a little bit better. And this is what I was kind of trying to address some of the concerns raised by the committee, which were, you know, we're not going to be able to do all the good things that are in the 1, 2, 3 to 7 on the next couple pages in every project and every plan and everything. But it's basically, we're pledging that, just like we're doing with the complete street policy, that we care about these things and we are going to do our best to address those things in the projects, you know, moving forward. What I will say is when I was thinking about it, and this actually was prompted by recently going through the cross acceptance exercise for the state plan, you know, almost by default, and I added the kind of last 3 whereases to try to address this, is like, we do have a historic land use pattern that is more sustainable because it's walkable, it's compact, it's near transit, it's near, you know, employment hubs, all those things. So when you look at like smart growth and sustainability from a land use perspective, we're kind of like already doing it almost because that's what we were born to do. And then I would argue in the next whereas, we've been in keeping that tradition going. And if anything, we're trying to double down on it through our master planning efforts, through our redevelopment efforts, and so forth. So this is the story I was trying to tell in the reso. So hopefully you see it sing to you. And those are not things you'll see in the template from Sustainable Jersey, but maybe someone will steal ours one day and we'll see it in 50 towns.
Somebody will, because I'm gonna send this to NJ Conference of Mayors, so they were looking for this
Well,
today.
insert town, special thing that's.
No,
about-
after
Right.
we mark
And
it up and
then
get all
it
our credit.
transitions into these different categories, some of which are things you almost have to do anyway, like Phil was saying with some of the stuff, regional cooperation within land use, you have to notify your neighbors. But we also are in constant contact with the county. Mayor meets with our neighbors regularly. We try to the extent that we have projects that might negatively or positively impact New Brunswick, Piscataway, Edison, we do a job, and we have shared services like our animal control and our health inspection. So we are knit in. So that's kind of, to me, a no-brainer. Like, we do it, we'll continue to do it, and we're always looking for more opportunities. The transportation choices, by virtue of where we are very well situated for transit. And assuming we like some version of the Complete Streets, Green Streets policy, we're already contemplating an action that would advance Complete Streets approach as is suggested in this reso. And then natural resource protection, this one's a little more tricky for us in that we are not, like this, remember, this pledge is supposed to be for every kind of town. So we don't necessarily have swaths of environmentally sensitive areas, although we do have
We don't
our
have the pine
ecological, our quarter of that ecological reserve area, which our zoning does protect. We do think about, we do have a natural resources inventory, and we have been talking about getting it updated in the next couple of years. So, while not every project is going to preserve natural resources, I think by virtue of developing in a Highland Park kind of context, we're playing our role in the protection of natural resources in the state as I look at it. And we certainly value it, and our parks and our open spaces are precious to us. And we have concerns about climate. I will say, they glaringly omitted from this is climate change, in part because nobody was using it as it wasn't a term of art at the time when I was drafting it. It wasn't in the repertoire, and I guess even though we knew it was a thing. So, that's one thing I contemplated. Do I put a tip of the hat at, but I decided to kind of stay within the parameters of the model. Mix of land uses, all of our redevelopment, all of our town, we're doing it. Housing options, our affordable housing plans are in kind of our approach. This is a little broader. It's also saying, a commitment to looking more generally at housing, not just kind of deed restricted affordable, making your numbers work for fourth round, but other kinds of things like, could we look at allowing more two families in certain zones, things that we've talked about over the years? This would be something that we're willing to have those conversations. And then green design, we're already incorporating green design into our redevelopment plans. And certainly if we were opening up our development and design standards, we could certainly consider that as well. And there are some sustainable Jersey actions around green design that we could consider in the future. And then municipal facilities siting is kind of a dorky one in the sense that, like, we're not moving municipal facilities a whole hell of a lot of the time. And if we were to locate them, they're all in good locations because we're 1.8 square miles and walkable. But you can imagine there are some communities with vast sprawling, and they put it over here instead of like, oh, wait, why didn't we put it? So that's one that probably doesn't speak to our community as much as it might to another community with a lot more land to play around with. But it's still important to think about it. Like, maybe there's a better place to put that resource than, let's say we were building the teen center. I think it's well situated right by the community center, by Borough Hall, by some of the neighborhoods that have some more need for support. But, we would have that conversation, like, does this serve its purpose where it's located, and can people get there easily? So that is I probably went longer than I meant to on that, and I've seen the mayor's yawning, so. But I feel very comfortable.
That's because
that
I'm
this is
familiar with the
already
material.
what we're doing. And Aaron, I guess, is there any thoughts you have about, concerns? Could this be like in a lawsuit one day, like, it's right here, you pledged?
No, it's
You
just
know?
that, just a pledge.
But I want to do the things. Like, I'm not pledging it just because I do want the points too, but
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to, this is awesome. I just wanted to add that, Sustainable Highland Park, has really been, eager to kind of promote these types of practices in redevelopment and, heat island effect and air quality are, routine,
Yes.
consistent. And the greenhouse gases are addressed.
Are they
here.
in there? Oh, that might
Well,
have.
in the whereas, I mean.
Well, good. That
yeah.
was probably the term of the day.
Right,
when
right,
I
with
wrote
climate
it in
change.
2011.
But yeah, this is,
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I feel a little better.
right, yeah. This is awesome.
I was focused on my whereases, the more recent whereases.
That's
So any
good.
other thoughts on it before? And again, you'll have a chance to kind of look at your inbox. and
Okay,
then-
Aaron?
So just to clarify the question, so pledges are just that. So it's not uncommon for councils to put forward resolutions where they are committing to a concept or an idea, a direction that they would like the administration and the borough to go to. But this is not an ordinance. This is not a binding agreement. And by the way, I pledge, the pledge to do these things does not bind you to make every single decision in a certain way, shape, or form. These are written in a way where we're saying this is the general concept of where we want to go, but we're not pushing ourselves into one very specific, we're not pigeonholing ourselves in any way, shape, or form. There's no challenge that someone could make. No one's going to file a prerogative writ and say, 3 years ago, the council pledged to do something, and I don't think this project met that pledge. That's just not a thing.
And this action has been around since I was at New Jersey Future in my early days.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, it's never been challenged. I think we would have had it more of a problem, we would have heard about that if the
And-
town got in trouble.
And even as we talked about some of the other projects going to ordinance to resolution, it's sort of the same concept. The resolutions are we're going to do things in a certain way. Ordinances make things a lot trickier, and they are much more emphatic as to how we have to do things. So I like doing things by resolution and by pledge. I think it creates a concept that tells everyone the direction you want to go, and it gives you flexibility to then look at a project individually and then see how it fits globally, and then kind of make adjustments as you go. So you're fine here though from a legal perspective.
Oh, one last thing I should mention, the other kind of, assuming there's support and you vote in favor of it at the July 1st meeting, the next step is we send the pledges to our planning board and our zoning board members, and Matt will be there to try to explain what's going on, but basically it's just to remind them that these are our values. Again, they're not going to be shocked by these values. They're their values too. That's why they're on those boards. But it's just a way to regroup. I think we're just lucky in that we live this philosophy already.
Mhm.
There are towns that don't.
They
And so
don't.
this is
So
a
it looks like
much
you're doing all
bigger
this stuff
lift
anyway.
in a town that
Yeah.
has never thought of any of these things. And I can tell you, my biggest challenge people gave me when I was a reviewer was, I don't want to put the housing. And now they have no choice because the way the world has changed, but they were very petrified of mentioning anything about the housing, and that was like, you must. So anyway, thanks for your consideration.
Highland Park
Any
standards,
questions?
this is easy, but other towns, for
Listen,
those
yeah,
at home,
I
other
was
towns
always
do not
shocked,
put
like,
this on
it's
the
a
record.
pledge to
It's
maybe
great.
consider,
Yeah.
like, come on.
You're 100% right. I was at the planning at Blaustein School this morning, and all these towns have no concept. And we talked about this.
Oh,
and
that meeting, that
Head
makes
of
sense.
head
Now
of
I know what you mean.
FinCo, who was there,
Mhm.
she mentioned you with this,
Mhm.
and she was like, "We got to dig it up again." And I was like, "I'll get on it."
Little did you know.
So as soon as we pass and we move on with this, then we can share with the rest of the state and say, "Look at what we do."
Mhm.
Because there were like 15 towns who said they would love to see something like this.
That's right.
So yeah,
Make sure they cite us in all of their resolutions.
and that's why we
Well,
wanted to
just
make
make
sure that
sure
our
you,
pledge goes like
find-
bending
Find
it.
and replace the word Highland
Whereas
Park
we are
and
following
Borough
Highland
from
Park
your
yet
resume.
again.
Yes, again, look at us. All right.
Cool.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
And the last sustainable item, Mayor,
Yes.
was
The
I'm
first
not
one,
even gonna,
please.
I promise this one's short. You may all recall, except for those of you who maybe weren't around back then, we did a survey of all of our board and commission members. There's a diversity category within the Sustainable Jersey program. And it's a simple tool, but basically we would send out a survey asking for certain demographic information from all, and some of you maybe in your roles on boards and commissions completed it at the time, basically. And then we compared that demographic, and we're trying to, one of the feedback we got last time was shorten it. So we tried to just limit it to kind of key demographic, gender, age, time you've lived in town, because we want to get a sense for how do our boards and commissions represent the community
The broader
more generally.
community.
So we also tried to tie into, if it's a census data point, have our categories like for age ranges or for any other thing. income, whatever, match the census category so that we can more easily say, while X% of Highland Park, according to the census, is blah, only blah is percent is in our boards and commissions. So, and we recognize some people serve on multiple boards. And then what happens after we do the survey is we'll do a report back out to the council, either at a work session or during one of our regular meetings. That's a requirement of the action. So you'll hear, what our findings were. And we're going to be ready to roll out. It'll be a digital survey. It'll be anonymous. It's not like I'm collecting your name and who you are when we get it. We're going to ask our board chairs to kind of encourage their members to take it, and we're going to distribute it digitally to everybody. But as liaisons to your boards and committees, really encourage them to complete it. If they don't want to fill one of the questions out, they don't have to. I'm going to try to encourage people to fill as much as they're comfortable with, and just try to get to the end of it. And we're trying to make it a little shorter and quicker. So that's an action that we're just refreshing. It was done long enough ago. It doesn't continue to qualify for points. So, and it's probably interesting. We have a lot of new faces on the boards, and so anything you can do, because it was like pulling teeth to try to get people to complete the surveys. So I'd really appreciate, and you'll be copied on the distribution that goes out, and you'll be able to, nudge them at your meetings or what have you. Maybe everybody could just take their phones out for 5 minutes and do it at one of their meetings, I'd appreciate anything you can do, because again, I'm just gonna say we're gonna give people like 2 weeks, because really, if you don't do it in 2 weeks, you're not gonna do it. You're gonna have forgotten, and we'll do one last, we'll do a couple of reminders and so forth. So that's just coming, and it's more of just a heads up.
I was just, is it like a Google Doc survey, just to your point that it was.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if you use SurveyMonkey or Google Docs or whatever, one of those tools, yeah. And there is a print version, so we can do it that way if somebody, for whatever reason, technology or otherwise, we can provide it, but obviously the tabulation will be much easier if people just complete the survey. And if you can just ask for that minute on the agenda once it goes out. So I believe we're trying to get this out next week. So probably you're, in the next couple of weeks, and you can do like a final nudge at your July meetings if you have time.
Okay, and now,
Did you have a question on it?
No, just to.
The next one?
no,
not yet.
he has-
Just, along the lines of getting the diversity survey taken out, one of the things that we've talked about with Sustainable Jersey is we live them, like their values are our values. We follow, and so we are able to do a lot of things because they represent a lot of what we want and things like that. But could we think about it at some point of saying, by being a silver member of Sustainable Jersey, or if we get to gold or something like that, here are some of the other benefits that we get, right? Like can we quantify those to tell people, so that people see that we're not just doing it to chase the points and all that. We're doing it because it helps frame what we do. It helps, gives us a checklist for all of this. But somewhere, if we could help people understand exactly what those benefits
absolutely.
are, and if we get grant money,
we absolutely, there are grants, and Sustainable Jersey is very good about trying to reward either people who have done specific actions for the most kind of sizable answer to that question was, we did the community energy plan a number of years ago, and it had like a million things we might look at. And we were around, and grants available, and that's where we applied for those fast chargers.
Right.
And so we got the money. I think it's like $250,000 from the BPU to do the fast chargers, which is not enough money, unfortunately, but I'll be back to you on that.
That's right, Matt's gonna write the check.
Yeah, but the point is, if you hadn't done the plan according to the action, you couldn't have gotten in the
Anything.
funding for the implementation. So there are some examples of that. And then some of these are just because it's the best practice and we care about it. And some of them save money in terms of operations, like EV vehicle inventories, tracking that, trying to get better about replacing them when they're starting to really, not, are we perfect at that? But at least we're keeping our inventory up to date, so that when we kind of can build some more capacity to really have a kind of a robust approach for our fleet, that saves us money in the operations. So I think that's a good challenge. I'm gonna give it to Jake.
All right. Sounds like a great data project.
It does. And I wonder if there's probably some sustainable Jersey like document out there of why we're so awesome for your town that I could just grab it right out of.
That would be nice. Any other questions?
No, no,
Yeah.
like-
Yeah, please help me with the survey. And they never
Yeah.
want to take it because you're always going to come back to it and you don't. Like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's, if you don't do the survey when it lands in your inbox. And I should mention, we are convening our board chairs for our kind of, we're getting back onto our annual meeting, just the
Mhm,
staff and them. And I'm gonna make the personal plea at that meeting. That's gonna be the launch, and maybe I'll try my trick, at least get the board chairs to fill it out.
Yeah.
Right, sitting there with me, and Jake. So, you know, because it was just frustrating last time, I just remember. I'm really struggling just getting a decent participation rate.
Any other questions? Okay, now we move to South Third, which Matt is jumping to talk about.
Yes, I'm jumping at town because we had a meeting.
Yeah.
We have an internal
I know it.
Kickoff meeting.
I happened to call that day and it was like, we had the meeting. I was like, okay.
No, we had a great meeting this morning with Arterial and their staff, and we met the engineers, we met the planners, we met the landscape folks. We had known them beforehand, and it was really just sort of a kickoff meeting to get things started, and I thought it went really, really well. I thought we clarified a couple. They had some questions about where we were in terms of Yellow Brick Road and where we were in terms of Rite Aid and the cut through, and all of those things. So we've shared some good information. So the idea is that we're going to continue sort of the internal staff meetings. We're going to sort of put some more meat on the bones. We have a stakeholder committee, which we've conveyed of people from Main Street, and people service centers, people live on the street. Down the road, we'll start with our stakeholders to again continue to flesh some things out. Obviously the down the road we'll have a public meeting, we'll have a listening session where the public can come in and say boom, 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 and all of that. So it was great to sort of finally get the kickoff. I will say that one of the things that one of the planners, so could you give us a timeline? And I said tomorrow. They didn't think that was going to be that fast, but they get the point that we are ready and we want to go and we want to get this moving as fast as we possibly can. So it was a good kickoff meeting. I think we got more to do, but it's nice to actually get it going.
And can I
You
just,
should definitely report on that in your next
Yeah,
meeting,
absolutely.
and especially that Matt told all the kids last week. What?
Yeah. It's gonna be a park.
And next year.
yeah, you set some high expectations.
Yeah, it's like all those kids run home and tell their parents, yeah, park next year.
Mayor, if I might just add two,
Sure.
just kind of, and it may have
Go
been
ahead.
after the point where you had to jump off, Matt. The meeting went long. We were all excited. We started like planning the project. We couldn't help ourselves. But the kind of just in terms of engagement, kind of think of it this way. We have our advisory committee, which is the small group that's going to we're going to kind of pitch our outreach strategy to. They're kind of bless it. And then we're going to have kind of smaller stakeholders, the obvious ones
Yes.
being you live on, the residents
Residents.
on South Third, the
Mhm.
businesses immediately kind of
Mhm.
adjacent to the plaza are kind of special stakeholders, are going to have special concern.
Mhm.
Our borough departments like Public Works,
Yes,
like public
public
police,
safety.
like fire, we're going to bring them in early so that we don't get excited about an alternative that
Mhm.
then has a fatal flaw that we hadn't think of. And also not necessarily stakeholders, but advisors to the project are going to be our engineers at CME, especially around stormwater issues and some of those important things. And they're going to be kind of have a second set of eyes on the engineering, and LRK will kind of be an advisor to the project. They're not going to be at every meeting. We're not going to be spending a ton of money on it, but I consider them part of our staff. And so we're going to roll them in. So we hope to have kind of a proposal put together in really short order about kind of key benchmarks and timeframes. The listening session, we
Mhm.
want to do kind of an open house format
Mhm.
sooner than later, because we might as well just put it all out on the table, but have some parameters for
super
that
excited.
conversation. And then get to work designing, that's, get to it as soon as we can. So you'll have a much more they kind of, I think we gave them some key backing into dates of, important events and things like that. So now it's on them to kind of come back to us with a revised proposal. And as soon as, the advisory committee kind of blesses it and weighs in, we'll share it and make sure all those dates get on your calendar where appropriate.
Any other questions? Jason?
When's it gonna get built?
Yeah.
Don't.
Yes.
You must have been in that meeting with Matt.
Just wanted to suggest instead of tomorrow for deadline, we go with yesterday.
Cool.
I'm just curious, like in terms of some of the, all kidding aside, in terms of, I think some of the work that needs to happen underground, that is maybe just, we know it has to be done. Is that going to commence anytime soon, or?
I'm working on the utilities, water and sewer in particular. That's the big ones that go through that area. Middlesex Water, through our operations contract, is coming up with the specs and an estimate for that work, and then I'll be back to you begging for money. And the hope would be we would get that out of the way well before construction. I think that's kind of work you can do at different times of the year, especially if you're not looking to perfectly restore the roadway, knowing that something else is coming the next year. So absolutely get that done on the front end. I just don't have a price, so I don't know how much to ask for. So that's what I'm waiting on.
And the other sort of infrastructure that we talked about is actually the light right on Raritan.
And that CME has done the specs for. and we
CME has
can-
done those specs,
you know.
but that's another sort of infrastructure.
Yeah.
thing that-
So you don't think about it, but Arterial was like, I was like, it's gotta be at least like $100,000. And they're like, really? $300,000 to $500,000. I'm like, why is everything so expensive? It's just a bunch of lights hanging. But it is what it is. So there are a lot, and then of course we have the
That
parking
gives
lot
all the money.
areas, we need to, so we've got these kind of different sections of the project. And that was what we started talking about, was like how we might phase things in construction wise and opening wise. And so that works for Main Street optimally, but it also works for track C. We got to juggle all these considerations.
Right. And, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say that we have $1 million.
They sound like $1 million is already gone.
And we already spent $1 million.
Probably need another $1 million.
So anybody who's got, we
But
need
you
to be on the
completely
lookout
build
for
out
those
this
types of
project
things,
of what
right?
they're
We're gonna need to be
Mhm.
looking out for some additional funds as we move forward, because this is not gonna be a cheap project.
I'm sorry. The other question I had was related to the funding piece. I'm curious. So it sounds like it's already looking like it's going to be more expensive than we had maybe anticipated originally. But in terms of some of these infrastructure projects, and I guess just getting up and running with Arterial, have we begun to draw down the state funding that we have? from the grant?
Arterial is being charged against that grant.
Okay, so that's already being spent. Yeah, good.
So and keep in mind that includes the soft cost, the engineering, it's not just the design and the construction. And so, fortunately, we've invested a lot already in the permit. So we kind of know what's doing in the intersection, and for another 15,000, we could have bid documents for that. That's not too much, but then I would love to have an estimate so that we could really, so the mayor could have that in her hip pocket every time she's hitting people up when she's out and about. And we're going to be creative. We can look at, other options in our negotiations with our track C friends and other things. We'll see what we can do. But there's only so much you can squeeze out of one thing, so we're trying to figure that out. But it became very clear, not through Arterial, but even through the interview process with the other consultants that we interviewed, they all thought it was at least 1.5 to 2. Some thought even way more,
I would anticipate that this would be more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, just considering a track and field was $1.5 million.
Exactly, and that
Um,
seems very routine. And
Yeah.
we asked for 1.8, by the way,
Right,
and we
yeah.
got 1. So that, we knew as well.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to, just a quick clarification. You mentioned $300,000 to $500,000 for hanging lights. I missed.
Oh, no,
that. What
sorry.
was that for?
Street
Street lights.
intersection signals. Sorry,
Got
the
it, the
light
signals,
signals. I gotta
got
use the right word. So we have to redo, if you're gonna close South Third on that one side, that changes all the lights. And of course, DOT
four.
makes you upgrade everything while you're there to the latest whiz bang and pedestrian intervals and all that stuff. So part of what that permit was the plan for that.
Right.
And we basically told Arterial, we want to work on the other side of that, like keep the DOT permit in terms of the street intersection alone and focus on the plaza. We may have to deal with some, ADA curb ramps and things like that, which DOT will need to review. But we think we know how the street signals need to work. You don't have to worry about that. And we're giving them those designs so they can back right out of it. So yeah, I kind of fumbled the term, but it's this intersection
No, if I
lights,
had, yeah.
signals, the signals, which who knew that was a thing? I was like, why can't DOT do it?
Jason?
Yeah, so to just continue on the questioning, line of questioning was, what I was trying to get after was, I'm just curious, like, is the money from DCA, the grant that we have from the state budget, is that like fully in our hands? Is it expended?
No, so
no,
there's $1 million and we haven't charged a dime against it yet. We've been using our own funds to fund the CME work related to because it really predated that money. That money's there. I don't know if we've gotten an advance. Sometimes you can get an advance or not. I can't remember with that one. There's a couple different grants in the hopper and Sage. But that $1 million is eligible for any design and construction work. And when we awarded to Arterial, their chunk is coming right out of that. That leaves approximately, I want to say $800,000 for the first phase, whatever, 8.5. I forget exactly what their contract amount. We may have some, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, because I guess the concern that I had was like, if the
Think
money
it's
is still
going
with the
away?
state, like it could potentially.
No, it's been
like-
awarded. We have a grant agreement. I don't know, maybe, look at what's happening on the federal level, anything.
That's exactly where I was going.
I don't want to speak, but I'd like to hope our state officials would honor the commitment they've made to our.
Right, it's just that the potential that there could be drastic cuts at the federal level that, severely like impact.
I
the
believe
state.
those funds are encumbered and it's not something that the
I
state
hope
can
so.
just slice and dice
That was
away.
last year.
That is, on the other hand, I think we will get going on that upfront payment. If it is in fact something that we can do, we will do that.
But we should also just at least confirm that it's incumbent, that if the money.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know how but then again, I don't know how the federal government was into all these agreements and pulled the rug under everybody. So I guess anything can happen if you're willing to throw everything away.
Because the last
But
thing I
we had
heard,
a
we're not
very
gonna have a budget
fancy
until September.
agreement that we had to execute, and people at the high levels of wherever in the state government, these grants. So if you tell me that doesn't mean it's a sure thing, then I don't know what to do.
That I can't speak to. for
Yeah.
sure. But I would it might be good to.
Let's do a
spend-
drawdown if we
Let's take a quick look
can.
and see what we can take.
Yeah.
Whatever work we can
Usually
do,
they'll let you
just
advance a
move
certain
it.
percentage and then hold back, increments, but
let's
these
see
are
what we
different
can do.
grants, so I don't know.
Any of the work that we could do on the sidewalks, like to get underground and do that work that doesn't involve shutting down the street. I don't know, it might be good to
Oh, yeah,
expedite. Just
that's the
in case.
only
have
money
no
I have to
insight,
do
no.
anything, Jason.
Yeah.
So that's the money that we'll spend first, 100%.
But I think Jason's good, that's a good point. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Sooner.
Well,
Yeah,
I'll
let's
just
get the
see-
money
I'll see if we
in
can
our
get an
coffers,
advance.
right?
I'll see if we can get an
I'm
advance.
not sure how that works, yeah.
No, there are other grants that we have through DCA where the community center roof, for example, was like, oh, you can ask for an advance and it's like 25% of the grant. So we can certainly do that. It's no skin off our nose. It's an easy application. We don't necessarily need it to keep the project afloat, but given what you said, I think it's. not a
I
bad
think
idea.
it's prudent to follow Jason's
Yeah,
lead
I
on
agree.
this because we don't know what's happening. I was speaking to someone, a lawmaker, and they're saying it might be September before we get a budget. And I was like,
I think they'll pass the budget.
But this would have been
fingers
last,
crossed,
just to
but
be
State or
clear,
federal?
this was
State.
last budget.
They have to.
I know, but they
They
keep-
might reopen it.
yeah,
too.
yeah,
That's
and then
what-
that's what they were saying might be.
Jason, just to be clear, I believe this was last year's budget.
It was, it was,
Yeah,
it
so
was.
that's-
But
Yeah.
if there's still money.
Covered.
in the
But-
accounts,
but
like, I
they're-
guess-
I
Theoretically
hear you.
possible. I don't-
There's
I
only
don't
so
know.
much I could do. We could probably do a dry down of 250.
I mean, we can take a look. What we're saying is take a look.
Yeah.
And see what the possibilities are, because it's crazy
But we can't
times.
do that sidewalk work until we have a better sense of what the rest of the project is,
Oh, sure. I
you
just
know.
meant that as like, because I don't know, the construction.
Because
design, but
Jason
like-
will die if this doesn't.
Well, actually, the other thing I think we learned more recently is that we're very comfortably below our borrowing threshold for like what's a good practice.
Yeah.
I feel like we have borrowing capacity that.
We do,
tap
although
into.
what you borrow, you must pay back, and
Of
that
course.
raises
Yeah, we
the,
want to be
debt
careful with that.
service and things like that. But absolutely, I think we're gonna have to look at all those sources of revenue to make this project, happen.
Mhm.
And I think we all knew that eyes wide open. It's just, it's reconfirmed. And basically, we told them, let's go for a $2 million project, but we don't want to take things off the table that you really want. So, we want to have I don't want them to say, rule out an idea just because, oh, that's going to really throw this off. But they asked for a number. So we said, okay, 2, as kind of an outer number that we would want to consider. So.
I think it's worth the investment if it's something down the road that we need to bond for a portion of.
So
I think
let's
the
think of
community would
bonds.
agree that it's worth the investment.
I guess that's.
I certainly
They
do.
really, really want this, so.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? All right. Okay. Now we go to number 5, NJTPAs.
So I had asked to put this on the agenda because I thought we might have an opportunity. We do have an opportunity to apply for this program. It's kind of a technical assistance
Mhm.
program run out of North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, whatever. And the one good thing about going to conferences is you network, and I was sitting in the, I had this on the agenda already. I was in the conference at the Planning and Redevelopment Conference, and I saw like half of the staff of the NJTPA, Jeff Perlman and
It's
some of
another
his
part,
staff. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I'm like, not for nothing, would this be something that you'd considered? And the idea I had was to restudy the one-waying of Magnolia and Benner in light of the redevelopment and on South Third, and I really loved the idea. And I had seen something in the project description that thought, oh, it had the word complete streets in there, maybe it would go. And they basically said, no, they really want townwide things. They want something else. It's due at the end of the week, but they did say they have a complete streets technical assistance that they thought that might be a good candidate for. So now that's on my radar. So I apologize for the false start here, but I wanted to talk about it because I would
Still
have to
wanted us to
apply
bring
for
it
it
up.
before we had an ability to do a reso. But we're not going to apply at this time, save Retujo a lot of time. She already started it. So we have the idea, and it's something that came up when we thought we were getting the funding through the federal government to do some portion of North 8th and the one-ways on, and I think it's a valid point that we need to revisit it, look at the feasibility, and if we don't think that the configuration that's in our bike ped plan makes sense anymore, what could we do to get the same kind of through traffic for bikes and the safe, kind of a dedicated bike space on kind of paralleling Raritan? That was the goal with that proposal. So alas, on hold, but you will see it again and if I see any other opportunities. But I really like that it was kind of TA, because that's what we really needed. And they have the expertise there. So that was easy, no action needed.
Okay, Matt?
I just wanted to mention that at the conference that Terry just talked about, Terry gave a presentation that rocked the house. So I just wanted
So an audience that consisted of Matt, Chris, Retuja. I was like,
people didn't know, but it was about Superfresh.
navigating a food crisis. I'll happily
Navigating a
give my
food crisis.
PowerPoint to anybody who wants to listen. But it was basically, they wanted
North
us to
Chatham
talk.
Mayor wants your PowerPoint.
Okay, it was basically
Yeah,
telling
so does
them,
Canesburg.
okay, happy to do it. But basically telling our Superfresh story
Right.
and how we tackled it using kind of all the toolbox methods we had available to us.
Mhm.
And I actually really enjoyed it. And it was actually it was a little like PTSD putting it together, but then, it reminded me, it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna apply these to Rite Aid, same lessons, different situation, we can do this. And so thank you for the
But
comments. I appreciate it.
it really was a good presentation, got good comments. People were really, really interested. So thank you, Terry.
And I like the other speaker too, so I
Yeah,
think
he
we
was
did it,
cool
we
too.
did it,
He
it
was
was a
very
good.
cool.
The title was not a good title. I felt like the branding, I did not write it. I was like, how you skim the conference thing? It was like
The new normal.
harvesting growth,
The new-
navigating the challenges. It was like, oh, nobody's gonna know what this is about by the
The
title.
new normal. Everything's the new normal.
But yeah, everything's the new normal, harvesting. And some people thought it was gonna be about, warehouses made for growing food, I was like, no, that's not what this is.
No, it's not a good title.
Can I just add to the chorus
Yes,
of
go ahead.
patting you on the back and
Oh.
ourselves on the back is like, just in my day job, people ask us from other towns, what the steps that we took to get the grocery store.
Yes.
The hands-on approach, I think that Highland Park took, Mayor.
Well, now I have
was
slides, but I can. we
It
can-
was a
not
big
like a
one.
business.
Today at the conference today, that was another thing that
Yeah.
came up.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
kudos.
so that's awesome. Yeah.
And I told him to reach out to you.
All right, no, and I already did talk to I think the Chatham mayor.
The North Chatham mayor,
or
she
maybe
said.
not North Chatham.
North Chatham.
I kind of glump a lot of those towns. Like, I don't know them well enough to
Yeah.
know which is which, but yeah, happy to share. They're all tools we all have. It just doesn't work for your town, you know?
Right. All right. Any other questions on this? Okay, now it's time for public comment. Anyone online?
Nobody online, and I
And
guess we
nobody
lost our
here,
audience
so-
member.
Okay, so seeing that there's none, I'm gonna skip that and gonna go right to adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, all. See you next Tuesday.
Everybody.
This was good. This
All
was
right, I did
very
not- I did not-
productive.
I
Was
did
very
not,
good.
I'll see everyone in July.
See you in July. Enjoy your vacation.
Hey, good job, everyone. We got
Yeah,
some done.
high
We got some
five.
done.
Rights like our regular.
It was good. It was
I
good.
love these meetings where it's like we get stuff done.
And we get into the business now.
It saves everything.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I